Hey there, everyone. This is Emily with Brilliant Marketing. I'm going to be adding Rebekah. Hey, lady, how are you?
Hi. How are you? Let's see if I can get this angled correctly here.
I know the angle always changes. Oh, it's so good to see you.
It's good to see you. I'm
Oh,
wibbling and wobbling around here. All right, maybe I'm just gonna do this. Get the angle right. Oh, there we go. Nope.
No, up a little bit. There.
Okay.
Awesome. All the technical
hang on.
difficulties.
I realized that I have this adapter. I can move it. There we go.
Perfect.
That's better. Now I think
Nice. Perfect.
sort of.
Great. I'm so excited for our combo today about
I
how
know,
to
me
get creative
too.
flow.
It's good to see you again.
I know it's been a while. So I think we should just dive into it. People can join the conversation as we go and
Great.
drop their questions in the chat. And
Yeah.
you got a nice little sun-kissed tan going on too.
I seem to soak up the sun quite a bit, but I'm also like a sun girl. So anytime I can be in the sun, I try.
Hey, we've got to take it while we can here in the Pacific.
Yeah. I know. As much vitamin D as I can get in these like 4 months that are amazing.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Well, awesome. Well, for those joining, I'm Emily Tricky with Brilliant Marketing. I'm the co-founder here, and just a little bit about us. We are a branding and marketing consulting agency for nonprofits and purpose-driven brands, helping them bring their story to life and helping them reimagine the world. And so through marketing and branding and content marketing and that type of thing. So we worked with Rebekah from Rebekah J Designs a little while ago when you were looking to launch your last jewelry line, the Chosen Collection, and helping you develop kind of your messaging and your marketing plan and helping to launch at New York Now, which was so fun to work with you.
It was really fun.
It was super fun. And so I'd love to we can talk a little bit about that. And then also about your, creativity and how we brought kind of creativity into that process and your creative process and how we approach creativity at Brilliant Marketing as well. So for those that have questions or comments, feel free to drop them in. So why don't we just start off, Rebekah, just tell people a little bit about yourself and your jewelry, and let's just start there.
Well, hi, I'm Rebekah. I am a jeweler out of Seattle. I've lived here in the Pacific Northwest since I was about 12. I'm married and happily married since I was been with my husband since I was about 18 years old. And we have a 14-year-old daughter. I have a home studio here in West Seattle. And I have a bachelor's of fine arts in metals. So I learned my technique from the UW here in Seattle. And my collections are very inspired. A lot of times they're inspired by my belief in that we kind of, as humans, all have this shared thread of experience that runs through us all, and how we translate that, feel that, see that, experience it is all a little bit different. And our timing on each one of those things is really different, but I just believe in sharing those experiences with each other and creating this safe space of shared experience with each other in a way that allows for not only healing, but joy. And so my hope is that my pieces will tie you to these certain experiences, whether you're looking, whether a piece meets you at a moment where you need inspiration, or you need a reminder of where you are in life or where you've come from in life, or joy of a magic moment, or whatever it is. I hope that I can create pieces that take people to those places again, and kind of generate peace and love and happiness and all that good stuff. So
I love that about your jewelry. I'm actually wearing a couple pieces today. I have the vessel.
Oh, yay. I love it.
The vessel collection, and my sister had given me this ring.
Nice. Yeah.
That's the intuition ring.
It is. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
So
that I love that about your jewelry, is that the story behind them, and it's I think that's what makes your jewelry really unique, is that whole, there's meaning behind it and there's that story piece. And so I think that was what was so cool about working with you on the Chosen collection, and how you brought in some of that different inspiration from that different like artwork of clumps and that type of thing, which is really cool. So my first question is just around like, what is your creative process? So like when you go in the studio and when you're getting ready to develop a new collection or develop, a piece, kind of talk to us a little bit about your creative process.
Well, I think as a true artist, I am very inspired by my place in time. So whether that be, difficulties as a parent, struggles as a wife, experience where traveling really inspired me, or the beauty of nature, came to me. So like, definitely, I think the seeds are begin by those things being planted within me. I think as far as like actually getting down to making work, I've had a lot of different processes over the years, partially because this wasn't a full-time gig for me for a long time. And so, it had to happen in between life. And as the mom of a young child, that definitely impacted my ability to just like stay in the studio and put my head down and find this magical creative process. It was very intentionally and sometimes really haphazard times that I was into the studio, and it definitely took me a lot longer to create collections because of that. Getting into that creative space took a lot longer. 2 years ago, I got to leave my corporate job and take this business full time. And so I'm having a really great time generating what I want that creative process to look like. And so this last year, I took my own solo creative retreat, and I went and tucked myself away in a quiet little cabin in the woods, and at the end of summer, and it was incredible. I took a huge crate of books. I took almost my entire like bench with me. So I had my Flipcraft and my tools and all that good stuff, so that I was able to like draw, read books, go out in nature, come back, make what was in my head. And that was just wild. I've never had an experience like that before, and definitely want to do that again. So yeah, creative process has looked really different for me every time I've made a collection.
I love that. I love that you did your solo journey, and you just maybe like, how was it, as well as like going in like with expectations? Did you just have like, I feel like sometimes for me, that's like a big thing of like, oh, I need to do this like in this time frame, and we all know creativity kind of like comes at different times. Like, and so talk to me a little bit about like, you plan this trip for yourself to go do this. Did you have expectations going into it, or were you just like, I'm just going to see what happens?
I think both. I mean, I knew going into it that that my expectations were grand and not likely to be met. I mean, honestly, I was like, I'm going to create a whole collection. And I did make a lot of work right there. I mean, it really laid the foundation for all of the work that I ended up making. It really was the basis of it. But of course, I was like ready to like, you know, ship all of my waxes off for to be made right then and there. And that's not, I knew that there would be some disappointment. But yeah, I definitely, I think I wanted it to be far enough away that there was a drive.
Yeah.
And so like my headspace was kind of in the right place, like with this like 2.5 hour drive of like listening to music and like getting into the space where I knew I was going to create. And then like very intentionally setting up my studio and having that time be long enough that if I wasn't feeling creative in the moment, it wasn't going to stress me out. I think that is like a really big thing when you feel pressured to create, is because there's some kind of sense of time frame, you know, that you have to do it within. And it is really hard to be creative at, you know, whenever you need to be. Like if you need to be at a certain specific time, it's hard to make that happen. Definitely creativity comes and fits in spurts. And if you're lucky, you're able to, you know, harness that time and run away and slide yourself into the bench and do stuff. And I think that's definitely an opportunity that I never got to experience before being full-time. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I know for me, like, you touched on this a little bit as well, as definitely like needing to be inspired. So like in order for me to kind of like get in that flow or feel kind of that creative energy, is like I almost have to kind of like harness it from something else and like tap into it. So whether like for me, if I need to, you know, create some new kind of like branding or messaging for a client, it's like usually it happens like outside, like behind the desk. It's like I need to go and go on a walk in nature, listen to some like, you know, pump up music, or listen to a podcast of like someone that's like really excited about what they're talking about. Getting some type of movement, something like that, or just being in nature and kind of like letting my mind go. And then that's where there'll be something that I'll like pick up on and kind of get in this nice kind of like flow and energy. And then I'm able to kind of like harness that and then come back to my desk and be like, all right, like I'm in the good headspace. Now I can kind of like sit down and, you know, kind of tap into that a little bit more.
Yeah. I definitely, you know, like I think as far as creating jewelry, I don't want to say that I am forced into any kind of like set rhythm of, you know, launching collections, but it is an accessory collection. You know, it is an accessory, and there tends to be a cadence of like when things need to happen and like when things should come out, especially if I'm doing trade shows or anything like that. So there is a reality that I have a deadline. And it's up to me whether or not I want to make a new collection for, you know, a trade show. If, you know, so that isn't necessarily like high pressure for me. But knowing that I do have a deadline has always been very helpful for me. And so then for me, when I know that there's a deadline, I kind of create these times for myself where I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to go camping this weekend, or I'm going to go on a walk and I'm going to intentionally think about this thing and how I feel, or what is it that I'm going through. Like a lot of my collections are really inspired by like for example, the Chosen collection that you helped me with was really about what I needed to make a change for myself. And the change that I was seeking was that I wanted to quit my job and I wanted to be a full-time jeweler. And so I really started wholeheartedly like examining like how long I had been waiting for that choice to manifest, you know, for that thing that I wanted to become reality, and all of the things around that allowed that were possible for me to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being with my family and watching, with the last collection, it was all about it's the vessel collection,
Mm-hmm.
and how, I was thinking really intentionally about how we carry things and how we are vessels for things. And then being inspired by, the beach logs down the street from my house, and how these little, logs, are worn away by the tide, and they collect, leaves and little sticks and small pieces of shells, and how those little worlds inside of a log are beautiful in and of themselves. But then if you imagine over time a wave jostling a log around, and those little things that it's carrying are also like evolving that vessel, like that's
Totally.
changing the shape of that vessel, and it's making it bigger. Or perhaps the log that fell down used to be a power line or something, and it's got
Mm-hmm.
some already attached to it. And so really visualizing those things in nature, or, in our daily lives, that are like metaphors for what I was trying to say about our own inner vessels, and how they change over time, and also the ability to like hold things on the outside is really impactful for healing, and also for joy. So it doesn't have to necessarily be something hard, like the term, like, you are a vessel sometimes, or the things that you carry are sometimes can seem like it's a negative thing, like you carry the pain or something like that. But we also carry the, joy of the things that we desire in our life. And so if it's a little nugget of inspiration for, some dream you have for yourself, then it's amazing to be able to like connect with that physically. Sure. And so I think just my inspiration, to really answer your question, is like, I'm constantly inspired. I have to be intentional about what my ask is of myself, and really visually looking and feeling those spaces, and talking about it. I think that those things are the ways that I become inspired to create work.
That's so beautiful. Give me goosebumps.
Oh, yay.
Well, so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, like, what are some tips that, people who have a 9-to-5 job, who aren't, jewelers or creatives, like, in their everyday lives, how can they kind of bring creativity into their 9-to-5? What are some like tips that maybe you could give them?
I would definitely say carry your sketchbook with you, because, you might be sitting on your lunch and get inspired and see some shape or whatever, and you should draw. I know that it's difficult and it's hard, because like we said earlier, you never know when that and that divine inspiration is going to come. And it's hard to be distracted in, a space. For me, I always felt like, working my 9-to-5, it was never what I wanted to do. And so I felt like it was just in my way, and I imagine that there are some other people that feel that way. And I think if you're an early riser, or you're a midnight, a night owl, like myself, there was something really calming for me about once my family went to bed, I had no more kind of push for my time or my space. And so the night became my time to work. And so I was often up late, and, that was hard. I was tired sometimes, but my brain was so active. I couldn't put it away. And because no one needed me,
right.
I was like, it was like there was like this calm that would wash over me, because everyone was asleep. And
it's like it was your time.
Yeah. So yeah, just being able to like, create some time for yourself within the week. And see if you can work, maybe not a 9 to 5, maybe work 4 10s. Like how can you like organize your life so that you have a day for creativity?
I like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's not, not everyone can do that, and that's
right.
But I had a boss that was really great, and he let me work, 3 or 4 days. And so then I had several days to just be in the studio.
That's super cool. I love that.
Yeah, it was good.
One of the things that we do at Brilliant Marketing, and it goes hand in hand with creativity, is like bringing in mindfulness. So like kind of like setting aside a time, at like the start of meetings or the start of our day of like, all right, let's kind of come together. Like at our kind of team meetings, we spend the first 5 minutes just kind of doing maybe like a guided meditation or just kind of like a little breath work or a little stretching or something. And mindfulness has been shown to increase creativity and collaboration and just focus and things like that. And so I think sometimes for me, it's just like taking a step back instead of saying like, oh, I have to get this done, like on this timeline that we were talking about. It's like, let's just create a space for like nothingness.
Yeah, absolutely.
and just be in the moment and see what happens. And a lot of times that sometimes things come up and sometimes they don't. But I think creating that space then allows something to potentially happen like later on in the day.
Yeah.
Or, afterwards. So
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that space, that quiet space, I mean, that for me, that when I took that creative retreat, I was talking about this with a girlfriend last night. And it was like, I've never lived alone. I've always, I moved out of my parents' house and I lived in an apartment with my best friend. And then when my best friend moved out, my future husband moved in with me. Wow. And then I had a kid. So I enjoy those things about myself. Like I love that I've been with my husband for this long. And, I don't think that distracts me, but now that I'm able to be really intentional about quiet time and focusing just on what's happening inside me, that creative treat was everything. I didn't have to get up and do anything on anyone's agenda. If I needed to sleep in until 10 o'clock, there was no one there to judge me about it. And then no one to roll over and scowl at me if my lights are on because I'm up too late. Like it just was like my own thing. And no one that needed me in the morning to make them a sandwich before school, Totally. Like I could just be me, and I could go on a hike when I wanted to, and didn't have to carry anybody else's stuff, like I just focused on me and had this quiet space that I was available to see what happens.
That's really cool. I love that. Just creating that space. And not being needed as a mom as well to two kiddos. It's like, oh my gosh, someone else needs something.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard once you get into that flow, to be constantly, taken away. And, even like I was saying with my, when I was doing my 9 to 5, of course, like my days in the studio were also, taken from me by, that's the day you go to the doctor. That's the day.
Right.
So there's all those kinds of like external things that like
errands,
get
sick,
groceries, whatever, So there's lots that wants to come in and kind of thwart that. So I haven't booked it yet, but I'm excited to do another creative retreat by myself. Although this time I don't want to. I think I'll bring my studio again with me, but I don't want to go with the intention of making a collection. I just
see what happens.
I just want to go, and I want to go with the intention of like creating. Yeah. But I don't want the pressure of making a collection while I'm there.
That's great. Yeah. I love that. Do you have any ideas about where you think you're going to go, a destination?
My friend Samantha Slater just posted a little a little like Airbnb that she stayed in, and
Mm-hmm.
it had a beautiful clawfoot bathtub on a deck, and I was like, I want that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds fabulous.
yeah. So I
Okay.
also have dreams of putting my collection or putting my studio. We have a Sprinter van
Mm-hmm.
that we camp in, and so I have some dreams of going on a little solo camping trip with my studio in it. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Like a mobile studio.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Super cool. Well, we have a question. So are there any rituals you have when you're in your studio?
I am not a very ritualistic person. I definitely I would think like the most ritualistic I am during my day is my coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm really a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person,
Yeah.
and um I don't, there's nothing really I do. I would say the things that come to mind are I am typically it's a chaotic mess in my studio, and I have multiple projects going all over the place. And I have like different like spaces for different things.
Uh-huh.
But like when I really need to work and my mind is a buzz and, like I feel overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
um, I know I need to clean.
Yeah.
And so tidying up my space is really important for me. And so I typically start the day with that because
Yeah,
often at the end of the day, I just want to walk away.
for
And so
sure.
I start with cleaning the studio, and actually like it takes me a while for my brain to function in the morning. And cleaning is so automatic, like I don't really have to think about it. Everything has its place. And
Mm-hmm.
so I find that for me, it's a lot easier to clean in the morning. I know some people are like, no, you got to clean up at the end of the day, but it really helps me get into a good headspace to tidy up in the morning when I get in.
Starting with a fresh slate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I love you'll post about that too. I feel like we'll see like stories or like the before and after, like the studio
Mm-hmm.
space. So I love seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Oh, all right. So my next question is talk to me a little bit about like place, like where do you feel the most creative? Like do you have a favorite place to I know you have your studio in West Seattle, and you've done your creativity adventures, out to your cabin and that type of thing. But yeah, do you have a place of like where you feel the most creative?
um, I think like I think water has always been the
Mm.
most inspirational thing for me. I think that is where I feel the seed of my creativity most like
Mm.
actively, um, like it just lights it up. And it's not always something where I'm like, oh, it like I see a piece that I want to make.
Yeah.
Just makes me feel really open and able to receive like whatever comes my way. So whenever I'm feeling cloudy, whenever I'm feeling confused, whenever I'm feeling stuck, um, I go to the water. I'm always there, and like all my vacations where I want to like let go,
Yeah.
I want to be near the water. It doesn't matter if it's a river, a lake, or the ocean. It doesn't matter. It just has to be water. I think
That's
I need a
awesome.
fountain in my backyard.
That sounds great. Oh, that sounds great. Well, I feel like water's so healing too. There's just something so calming
Yeah.
about that. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, that's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I feel like for me, like with where I feel the most creative is usually like travel in nature or traveling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's something about traveling and being like a new culture or even as if it's like kind of going outside of my routine, like, oh, I'm gonna check out this new coffee shop or
Yeah.
doing something new. Like there's
Yeah.
kind of like that little like buzz or energy that
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, ooh, I feel like a little inspired or
Yeah. Yeah.
um
I think even something as simple as like you're saying the coffee shop, it's something like that. I think for me, um, especially on like these nice days, like getting up a little earlier than my normal time and like intentionally setting quiet space for going on a walk in the morning. Like I don't do it often enough because I'm not much of a morning person. But that, you know, walking to the coffee shop when there's like kind of like crisp morning air and just the quiet sounds, like no music, no chatter in my ear, just quiet, listening to the sounds of the world wake up. I think that sounds really good. I might have to wake up early tomorrow.
You're convincing yourself for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So I'd love to ask you, just kind of talk to you a little bit about, like, you have, you know, your creative process for your collections and your jewelry as a metal worker. But talk to me a little bit about like your marketing that you do for yourself and for your collection is beautiful, and your branding is so beautiful. So talk to me a little bit about, like, you know, how do you kind of bring creativity into your own marketing, or how do you view it differently of like, you know, I'm creating this collection or this jewelry versus like I have to create all these like Instagram posts, or creating, you know, your website and different things like that. So talk to me a little bit about kind of like your creativity and your own marketing.
Gosh, it's a tough question, I think, because a lot of it, I mean, obviously social media feels like marketing, and it's something that I do every day. So it's a hat that I put on most time, you know, many times of the day, whether it just be to post, you know, in my stories, you know, what's going on in the studio today, or, you know, creating a reel where I'm, you know, oftentimes I get my coffee and I go back to bed and I lay there and create, you know, like splice together all my videos that I filmed from the day before, or the week before, or whatever. So, and then I think as far as, like, you know, design wise, I think, you know, for me, it's been really inspiring to work with photographers and create kind of these magical, moments of, you know, beautiful ways to show off my jewelry. I think those have in turn like inspired whatever it was I needed to make, whether it be a postcard or, you know, a header on my website or anything like that. And so not only, you know, do I have beautiful imagery to look at, but it's inspiring for me to, whenever I need to create content. I mean, gosh, that's like heaven to have beautiful imagery to work with.
Oh my gosh, that's huge.
I used to, when I was working, I worked in a print and copy center for Costco for like 12 or 15 years. And I saw a lot of content. You know, we were constantly printing business cards, postcards, like all sorts of marketing material. And so I feel like it kind of in that time just ingrained in me like what I would make and what I would do. And so I feel like I kind of have this weird thing in the back of my head, like what things should look like.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you do such an amazing job. And I know when we worked together, we did like a kind of like visioning, kind of goal planning session where we used kind of like a framework. You had your kind of your big goal of launching your collection and what you wanted to do, and then breaking that goal down into like little, you know, kind of milestones and more about tasks. And I know for me as like a visual person, it's so helpful. I actually have my own little, I'm gonna turn it over there.
Yes.
My own little sticky note board right there.
I love it.
So I know when we worked together, you had that, and you kind of had that in your studio. And so talk to me a little bit about like, was that helpful, or like as a visual person, like breaking that down, was like using a framework like that. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I mean, that's why I hired you, because I am so in my head and I have to get things out on paper. And there's like, you know, working for yourself,
Hard.
It's so hard. There is so much that you need to grapple with and think through. And honestly, like, I'm not good at the long-term linear thing. I am not good at that. And it's okay because I have people in my life who are. And you were really amazing at it. And my old assistant was really amazing at it. But basically allowing myself to verbal vomit, whether it is on my own with a big sheet of paper, writing everything down that I think and say, which is what you did for me. And then having someone be able to look at it, and using the Post-its was like money, because it was a thought. And if it wasn't in the right place, it didn't involve erasing. It didn't involve cutting anything out. It was like, nope, that goes in the beginning. It goes here. Like placing it within a timeline was so beneficial for me to understand like when things needed to happen and how they needed to happen. And then it gives you actionable things to put on your calendar and make a goal for yourself. And that was so good. And even when you just listened to me talk about creating my collection and watching you write the words that I said down, just like there was this weird link that happened where I was just saying what came to me intuitively, but then visually seeing it and giving it another form of context, and then moving them around. And so a lot of times the words that you wrote down ended up becoming names of the pieces. So it wasn't all, it wasn't just about my struggling to get through my own brain about what that collection meant to me. It also yielded so many other things. And so, get yourself a big box of Post-its.
I love Post-its.
So good. So good. Definitely one of the best lessons I took away from working with you. It was great.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's so awesome. I mean, I love doing this type of work, and using frameworks to help break down those big creative ideas that we all have. And sometimes it's just like, we just got to get it out of our head, and then we can organize it. But the first step is just kind of like getting inspired, and then getting that creativity kind of through you out onto something, and then working it, and you can move it around, and it can be a good process.
I want to grab something and show it to you. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Knock something over. So this was, I'm going to unroll it. This was what I used to create the vessel collection. And I brought this piece of paper and put it on so there was like a little table in the studio that I rented for my creative retreat. And I covered the thing with paper so I could just draw. And a lot of times as I'm making something, I'm really, I don't always have a piece in mind that I want to make. So sometimes I just sit down to make, or sometimes I sit down to draw and I start making something. And then while I'm making that, I see something else. And so I'll draw it. And so I just wanted this space where I could just like freely write whatever. But in the same vein as doing the Post-its, I just wrote different things like open, curious, opening doors, cautious, peering. Like this is like different pieces of poetry. In my head, I imagine these vessels while looking like they are constructed shapes. So I just like kept writing cocoon, just different words. And they were things that I was either reading while I was going through this pile of books that I had brought with me. But for me, this was like a way of like getting it out of my head and talking to myself. And I continued to draw and talk and draw and talk. And even when I felt like I was kind of nailing it, but I was like, there's like one thing, like I just couldn't resolve this one part of me that I knew wasn't tying the whole collection together. And I wrote up what I had, and I had a customer of mine she replied to an email one time, and she was like, I don't know, like a link was broken or something like that. And she was like, by the way, if you ever want me to read over anything, or proofread before, I'd be happy to do that. And I was like, that is the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. That is such a cool offer. And so I remember that, and I wrote this whole body, like a write-up on what I was having a problem with, and I said, would you be interested in reading this over? I need someone outside me to like hear my thoughts and tell me what I'm missing. And she came back and asked me a specific question, and it really spun it for me, because I get in my head as the artist, and also that I need to be the customer at the same time. And that's a really hard thing to do. And so her, as the customer, reading that, knew what the problem was that I was having. And she really was able to resolve that for me. So I think in that space of like creating and, really like the frameworks of what you're, getting things to mesh together and align and work together. Just relying on the people that you have around you to regurgitate that to you and ask questions about it before it's out in the world, because it really helped me solidify what I wanted for the collection. And in the same that you did with when we were working on the Chosen collection, like seeing things align as we talked. It's so helpful.
That's awesome. I love that you reached out to your community to help you, through that kind of creative block or whatever. Helps you kind of get through that. So that's super awesome. Well, I have one more question for you. If people want to if you have any other questions, drop them in there. But my last question is, so what do you do when you get stuck?
I think I just said it. I really, I think that having someone who can hear you, and maybe it isn't someone that's super close to you. Like, I don't think my husband would have been able to offer that to me. I think that, someone who's just outside of the realm of your creative space, and can understand how your brain works, or, just to offer some kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like unattached, view of what you're trying to do. Is so helpful. Like, just relying on your community. I am a managing partner of Join Design, and that community is insane, like, for support. Whether it's me just working it out with the two other women that run the organization with me, or just reading in on the emails that everyone sends when they have questions. Like, having that vulnerable space where you can just ask questions and be yourself is amazing. And so I definitely think when I'm stuck, I heavily rely on, other people in my creative communities to get me through.
That's super awesome.
I
love that.
I met with another maker yesterday. Actually, this week and last week, I met with other makers. And I think as people who are, we tend to just be alone in our studios, that's not always the best space for our heads. And we need other people so much. And I think of, even just listening to my husband, who doesn't really have a creative job, but, he works at a company with other people. And how much he relies on those other people when he has questions or needs to vent, or is or helping them through their own struggles. Like, I often sometimes just feel a little jealous of that, that I don't have that And so creating that kind of, those friendships with people. I met last night with Twyla Dill, of Twyla Dill Design, and she's also a Seattle jeweler, and just talking about business with her, and hearing how she does it. It's different than I do. And so those things can be really motivating for getting someone through, stuck times. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I think that's so helpful. Relying on, friends, community, people to give another outside perspective. That's awesome. Well, that kind of brings us to the close of our How to Get in Creative Flow. This has been such a fun conversation, and just hearing more about your process and what you do, how you get inspired. So we'll be sure to post this on our Instagram channel, and some kind of takeaways from it. Why don't you tell people a little bit about how they can find you?
Find me on Instagram. I think I do a lot of my most creative work here on Instagram, and at Rebekah J Designs. And you can buy my work at 30 stores nationally, which are listed, 35 stores nationally, which are listed on my website, which is .com, REBEKAH, the letter J, and designs.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yay. Yes. And her work is just beautiful. I have many pieces and I love each one of them. And thank you so much for your time. And if you're tuning in and you need help with marketing or branding or your social media, or even just kind of goal planning and want to sit down, like something like what you and I did, what Rebekah and I did, we reach out to us, DM us, check out our website, hellobrilliantmarketing.com. And with that, I can't wait for our next conversation. We'll have to figure out what our next topic is.
I'm excited for that too. Thank you so much for having me, Emily. It's been really fun.
Thanks, Rebekah. Have a good one.
You too.